The first time I kissed my rival, I was drunk on champagne and bitterness. The second time, I wasn't drunk at all, and that terrified me more than anything. New York had always been ruthless, but nothing compared to the battles inside the glass towers of our firm. I thought I had prepared myself for everything: the endless late nights, the power plays, the suffocating climb to the top. What I didn't prepare for was him. Daniel Cole, the golden boy with a smirk sharp enough to cut glass and a confidence that could outshine the skyline itself. It started with an invitation, printed on heavy cardstock, elegant enough to feel like a trap. Rooftop celebration. 8 p.m. Don't be late. At the bottom, in his precise handwriting, he had scrawled, "I expect you there, Ethan." I almost ripped it up. Almost. But my pride wouldn't let me. If he thought I'd skip his little display of wealth and charm, he didn't know me at all. The elevator doors opened to a rush of cool September air, carrying with it the sound of laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint hum of a jazz band playing somewhere among the string lights. The rooftop was dressed like a dream. Velvet couches, golden lanterns, and waiters weaving through the crowd with trays of champagne. And there, at the center of it all, stood Daniel, the star around which everyone seemed to orbit. He saw me instantly. His lips curved into that infuriating smile, the one that said, "You showed up. I knew you would." I hated how good he looked in black. His suit clung to his frame like it had been tailored for the sole purpose of driving me insane. His hair caught the city lights just right, and when he raised his glass in my direction, the motion was both a welcome and a challenge. I told myself I'd keep my distance. But the thing about Daniel was that he didn't let you have distance. Within minutes, he was at my side, his cologne a mix of cedar and something darker, something that unsettled me. "You made it," he said, his voice low enough that it felt like a secret. "Don't flatter yourself," I shot back. "I came for the free drinks." He chuckled, and God help me, the sound crawled under my skin. "Then drink up. I'd hate to think my rival can't handle a little celebration." If rivalry were a flame, then tonight it burned hotter than ever. We traded barbs like seasoned fencers, our words laced with venom but edged with something else, something that felt dangerously close to attraction. Every time he leaned in, every time his eyes lingered a beat too long, I felt the thin line between hate and want blur. The city stretched around us, endless and glittering, but all I could see was him. And then too fast, too reckless, his hand brushed mine as we both reached for the same glass on the bar. Just a touch, a spark. But it was enough to shatter the careful wall I had built between us. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. "Ethan," he said softly, my name leaving his lips like something forbidden. That was when I realized this wasn't a celebration. It was a battlefield, and I was already losing. That night carved itself into my memory, not because of what happened, but because of what almost happened. The kiss we didn't share burned more fiercely than any kiss I'd ever known. When I left the rooftop, my heart was pounding like I had sprinted through the city streets. My chest hurt with something I didn't dare name. I told myself it was anger, frustration, the sting of being toyed with by someone who had made my life hell at the office. But the truth whispered in the back of my mind. I wanted him. Work became unbearable after that. Every meeting was a test of endurance. Every presentation, a battle not only for recognition but for control over the thoughts that kept circling back to his mouth, his hands, his voice. He knew it too. I could see it in the way he lingered when passing me a file, the way his eyes held mine a fraction too long across the conference room. It was a game, and neither of us was willing to admit we were playing. Until the night he cornered me. It was late. The office was nearly empty, the city outside our floor-to-ceiling windows glowing with insomnia. I was bent over a report, trying to ignore the sound of his footsteps approaching. "You're still here," he said, leaning against my desk like he owned it. Like he owned me. "Some of us actually work," I muttered without looking up. He laughed softly. "Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like running away." That made me look at him. His eyes were molten in the dim light, burning with something that scared the hell out of me. "I don't know what game you're playing," I said, my voice tight. But I'm not interested. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. Liar. And before I could protest, before I could gather the will to shove him away, his lips were on mine. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was war. Every ounce of anger I felt toward him collided with every ounce of desire I had fought to bury, and the explosion left me shaking. His hand gripped the back of my neck, pulling me closer, while mine fisted in his shirt, torn between pushing him away and dragging him deeper. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless. So was he. This changes nothing, I gasped. He smiled, devastatingly calm. Of course it does. That was the beginning of the unraveling. I wish I could say I resisted, that I stood firm in the face of temptation. But the truth is, once you've tasted something forbidden, it becomes impossible to forget. Every stolen glance, every secret touch, every kiss hidden behind locked doors pulled me further into a world I had sworn I would never enter. And yet, the deeper I fell, the more I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just falling for him. I was falling with him. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the real battle was only beginning. Because love, like business, came with a price and neither of us was prepared for the cost. The morning after that kiss, the city felt sharper, louder, crueler. Or maybe it was just me. My reflection in the subway window looked like a man I didn't recognize. Collar crooked, eyes dark from lack of sleep, lips still swollen from a mistake I swore I wouldn't repeat. Except it didn't feel like a mistake. I walked into the office with 1,000 shields raised, but Daniel was already there, leaning casually against the conference room doorframe as if nothing had happened. When our eyes met, he smirked, a silent reminder. I kissed you, and you kissed me back. I told myself to ignore him, to bury myself in deadlines, presentations, and the endless grind that had always defined my life. But Daniel wasn't something you could bury. He was the kind of storm that tore through carefully built walls and left you standing in the wreckage, staring at the pieces of yourself you didn't know were breakable. The weeks that followed were unbearable. Every time he spoke in meetings, I felt my pulse trip. Every time he brushed past me in the hallway, the ghost of his touch lingered like a bruise. The office gossip didn't help either. Everyone whispered about our rivalry, about how we were neck and neck for the upcoming promotion. Nobody knew that beneath the rivalry, something reckless and dangerous had already begun. One night, we found ourselves alone again, this time in the file room. The building was nearly deserted, the hum of the air conditioner the only witness. I reached for a file and his hand landed on the same folder. Our eyes locked. Neither of us let go. Do you enjoy torturing me? I asked, my voice low. His smile was slow, deliberate. If I said yes, would you stop me? I should have. God, I should have. But instead, I pulled him closer, and once again, we were drowning in something neither of us dared name. What scared me wasn't the kiss, it was what came after. The silence, when we pulled apart and stared at each other like strangers. The way his hand would hover near mine, trembling with the urge to stay. The vulnerability that flashed in his eyes before he blinked it away, hiding behind arrogance. It made me wonder, who was Daniel Cole when the suit came off? When the smirk faded? When the battlefield wasn't the office but the quiet between us? I was desperate to know. The promotion announcement loomed like a guillotine. Both of us wanted it. Both of us had sacrificed too much to back down now. And yet, every time I looked at him, I felt the war inside me grow louder. One night, after a brutal day of work, I found him on the rooftop of our building, not the glamorous party rooftop, but a quiet, forgotten terrace with peeling paint and a rusted railing. He was sitting on the ledge, tie loosened, staring at the skyline like it might give him answers. You'll fall, I said, stepping closer. He didn't look at me. Maybe that's the point. The words hit harder than they should have. For the first time, his voice carried no arrogance, no sharp edges, just exhaustion. Without thinking, I sat beside him. The city roared below us, but up there, it felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of us. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. Do what? This. I gestured between us. You, me, whatever this is. For a long time he said nothing. Then, quietly, neither do I. That night there were no kisses, no stolen touches. Just two men sitting on the edge of a city that demanded too much, finally letting themselves be human. But vulnerability has a price. And in our world, weakness was blood in the water. The breaking point came a week later. The board meeting was brutal. Numbers, projections, strategies. It was the kind of battle I usually thrived in. But Daniel was fire. Every word sharp and flawless. Every point delivered with a precision that left the room hanging on his every syllable. When it was over, the decision was clear. The promotion would go to him. Applause echoed around the conference room. Congratulations flew across the table. And all I could hear was the sound of something inside me splintering. I wanted to be happy for him. I wanted to believe that what we had was separate from the war we had been fighting for months. But as he shook hands and accepted the position, he didn't look at me once. Not until the room was empty. Then, finally, his eyes found mine. And I hated what I saw there. Regret. I stormed out before he could speak. My chest felt hollow, my throat burning with words I couldn't say. I hated him. I wanted him. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. When he caught up to me in the hallway, I spun on him, fury spilling out before I could stop it. Was this your plan all along? To get inside my head, to distract me, to win? His face twisted, hurt flashing before anger replaced it. You think that's what this is? What else am I supposed to think? My voice cracked. You got the job. Congratulations. You don't need me anymore. Silence stretched between us, unbearable. Finally, he whispered, I've never needed anyone more than I need you. It should have undone me. It almost did. But pride is a cruel thing, and mine wouldn't let me believe him. So I walked away. The weeks that followed were the loneliest of my life. I buried myself in work, but without him, the office felt colder. Every late night was haunted by memories of his laugh, his touch, his voice. I told myself I was free, that I had cut away the poison. But freedom didn't feel like this. Freedom didn't ache. The call came late one night. I was at my apartment, staring at a half-finished report I couldn't bring myself to care about, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Ethan? His voice was shaky, raw. Daniel, I shouldn't have called, he said quickly, but there was a tremor beneath his words. I needed. He broke off, and for the first time, I heard fear in his voice. My heart clenched. Where are you? There was a pause. Then, quietly, the rooftop. By the time I reached the building, my chest was tight, my hands trembling. The elevator felt like it was moving too slow, every second stretching into eternity. When the doors opened, I found him standing at the edge, the city sprawling out below, the same spot where he had once told me maybe falling was the point. Daniel, I called softly. He turned, and the sight of him nearly broke me. His tie hung loose, his eyes red, his mask of confidence shattered. I don't know how to do this without you, he admitted, voice cracking. The words gutted me. I crossed the rooftop in 3 strides, grabbing his hand, pulling him away from the ledge. You don't have to. He looked at me, disbelief warring with hope. Even after everything? Yes, I whispered, because despite everything, my voice caught, the truth clawing its way out. I love you. The silence that followed was deafening. And then, slowly, his lips curved into the softest smile I had ever seen. I love you too, he said, and for the first time it didn't feel like war. Felt like home. The confession should have solved everything. It should have been the end of the war, the moment we finally surrendered to what had always been between us. But love doesn't erase the world around you. It doesn't silence the whispers in the office hallways or rewrite the rules of ambition. It doesn't stop the claws of fear from digging into your chest when you realize what you might lose. The morning after we said I love you, everything felt both fragile and impossibly heavy. I woke up in his apartment, sunlight streaming across sheets tangled from a night we hadn't planned but hadn't been able to resist. For a few blissful seconds, I allowed myself to watch him sleep. Daniel looked younger like that, softer, stripped of the armor he wore in the daylight. His hand rested near mine, close enough that if I stretched just an inch, our fingers would intertwine. But then the reality slammed back in. The office, the promotion, the endless eyes that watched everything we did. We weren't two men in love. We were rivals. We were co-workers. We were a scandal waiting to explode. And in New York, nothing stayed hidden for long. It began with whispers. Colleagues who paused when we walked into a room together, who exchanged glances when Daniel brushed past me a little too close. I told myself it was paranoia. But then came the questions. "Ethan, is it true?" My friend Claire asked one evening, cornering me near the coffee machine. Her eyes were sharp, but not cruel. "You and Daniel. People are talking." I froze, my mouth dry. "People always talk." She tilted her head. "So you're not denying it?" I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the words stuck in my throat, tangled with pride and fear. I walked away instead, leaving her with silence that probably spoke louder than any confession. That night, Daniel showed up at my apartment unannounced. His jaw was tight, his tie discarded like he'd ripped it off in frustration. "They know," he said flatly. I shut the door behind him, my stomach sinking. "Who?" "Everyone. The board. The partners. They know about us." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing my living room like a caged animal. "Do you realize what this means? They'll think I only got the promotion because of you, or worse, that you were compromised because of me." His voice cracked on the last word, and I could see the fear beneath his anger. Daniel Cole, the man who never flinched in the face of competition, was terrified. Not of losing his job, of losing me. "We'll figure it out," I said. But even to my ears, the words sounded hollow. He stopped pacing, his eyes locking on mine. "Will we? Or will this destroy us before we even begin?" The next few weeks were hell. The gossip spread like wildfire. Every look between us, every interaction, became fuel for the rumor mill. Clients raised eyebrows. Superiors questioned our judgment. It didn't matter that we were two of the best in the firm. All they saw was scandal. I tried to keep my head down, but Daniel burned. He fought back with the same fire he brought to everything, refusing to let them reduce us to whispers. He held his head high in meetings, spoke with even sharper precision, and when they tried to corner him, he met their stares without blinking. But I saw the cracks. The nights he came to me exhausted, collapsing on my couch with his head in his hands. The mornings when his smile felt brittle, like glass ready to shatter. And every time, the question haunted me. Had loving him made his life harder? The breaking point came at a gala. The firm had insisted we both attend, dressed in tuxedos and plastered smiles, paraded like trophies for wealthy clients. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, the air thick with champagne and ambition. At first, we played our roles. We laughed at the right jokes, shook the right hands, performed the dance of corporate charm. But then a partner, an older man with too much money and too little tact, cornered us near the bar. "So," he drawled, swirling his drink, "are the rumors true, that the two brightest stars of our firm are entangled?" His smirk was venomous. No wonder the competition was so fierce. Must be quite the pillow talk. The blood drained from my face. I opened my mouth to respond, but Daniel beat me to it. "That's enough," he said coldly, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Our work speaks for itself. And if you can't see that, maybe you shouldn't be sitting at the table." Gasps rippled through the room. The partner's face darkened, and in that moment, I knew. We had just declared war on the very people who controlled our futures. We left early, slipping into the night air, the city lights blurring around us. Daniel's hands shook as he lit a cigarette, something I'd never seen him do before. "They'll never forgive that," I said quietly. He exhaled smoke, his jaw tight. "I don't care." "Yes, you do." I stepped closer, taking the cigarette from his hand and tossing it into the gutter. "Daniel, you've worked your whole life for this. Don't throw it away for me." His eyes blazed. "For you? Ethan, don't you get it? None of this means anything without you. The words pierced me, equal parts beautiful and devastating. Because as much as I wanted to believe him, I couldn't ignore the truth. Loving me might cost him everything. That night, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling while he slept. His arm was draped across my chest, his breath steady against my neck. I wanted to stay in that moment forever, but the weight of reality pressed down, suffocating. If I loved him, truly loved him, maybe the kindest thing I could do was let him go. The next day, I made my choice. I asked to transfer to another branch, framing it as ambition, as a desire for new opportunities. The partners agreed too quickly, relief evident in their eyes. One problem solved. When I told Daniel, his face went white. "You're leaving." His voice was hoarse, disbelief etched into every syllable. "I think it's for the best," I said, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. "You'll have space to breathe. Without me, they'll stop questioning you." His hands clenched into fists. "So that's it? You're just walking away? I'm protecting you." "Bullshit." His voice cracked like thunder. "You're running. You're running from us." The silence that followed was unbearable. His eyes shimmered with something between rage and heartbreak, and I couldn't bear to see it. So I turned and walked out. The weeks that followed were empty. I moved to the new office, threw myself into work, pretended I had made the right choice. But the truth was written in every sleepless night, every phantom touch I couldn't forget, every moment I caught myself staring at the skyline, wondering if he was doing the same. I told myself I had saved him, but saving him had destroyed me, until the night it all came crashing back. I was at my desk, drowning in spreadsheets, when my phone buzzed. A message, just 2 words. "Come back." My heart stuttered. I stared at the screen, hands trembling. He hadn't called in weeks, hadn't reached out, hadn't given me any reason to hope. And now this, against all reason, against every wall I had built, I found myself on the next train back to New York. And when I stepped onto that familiar rooftop, the one where it had all begun was there, waiting. Daniel Cole, in a suit rumpled from the day, hair wind-tossed, eyes burning with something fierce and unyielding. "You're an idiot," he said the moment he saw me. "Do you really think I care what they say? Do you think I worked this hard just to end up alone?" My throat closed. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing," he said, stepping closer, "is being with me, no matter what it costs." And before I could answer, his lips crashed onto mine, desperate and furious and utterly certain. For the first time, I didn't fight it. I kissed him back like my life depended on it, because maybe it did. The kiss that night was different. Not rushed, not stolen, not desperate like the ones before. It was steady, certain, like he was planting a flag in my heart and daring the world to move it. When we finally broke apart, breathless and shaking, Daniel didn't look like the polished executive everyone admired. He looked raw, vulnerable, alive. "You're not leaving again," he said, voice low but fierce. It wasn't a question. It was a vow. And for the first time in months, I didn't want to argue. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Love never is, especially when it grows in the cracks of a ruthless world. But something shifted. Instead of hiding, we began to stand together. In meetings, in hallways, in late nights bent over projects, we didn't flinch when eyes lingered. We didn't apologize for the way we gravitated toward each other. There was pushback, of course. Whispered disapproval, raised eyebrows, subtle threats. But Daniel faced it with the same fire he brought to everything, and this time, I was at his side. The more they tried to break us apart, the closer we became. One evening, long after the office had emptied, we sat across from each other in the glass conference room, papers scattered between us. Daniel leaned back in his chair, watching me with that half-smile I had once hated and now couldn't live without. "You know what they're saying, right?" he asked. "That we're reckless, unprofessional, a liability." He grinned. "Exactly. And that doesn't bother you?" "It used to," he admitted. "But then I realized something. If I spend my whole life trying to make other people comfortable, I'll never be happy. And you," his voice softened, his eyes locking on mine, You make me happy, Ethan. That's what matters. The words sank into me like sunlight after a storm. I reached across the table, lacing my fingers with his. For once, I didn't care if the glass walls made us visible to the whole city. But love wasn't just about defiance. It was about trust. And trust meant letting go of the fear that had haunted us both. One night, back on the rooftop where it all began, Daniel pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "Move in with me," he whispered. I froze. "Are you serious?" "As serious as I've ever been." He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "I'm tired of goodbyes. I want mornings with you, nights with you, all the messy, boring, beautiful in-betweens. I want it all." My chest tightened, equal parts terror and joy. "You don't even know what living with me is like." I snore. "I drink too much coffee." He silenced me with a kiss. "I don't care. I want you." And just like that, the fear that had once kept me running dissolved. We built a life brick by brick, choice by choice. It wasn't perfect. We argued about groceries, about laundry, about who hogged the bathroom in the morning. We snapped at each other on bad days, made up on worse ones. But through it all, there was an unshakable truth. We had chosen each other. The office eventually adapted. Some never approved, but most came to respect us not just as individuals, but as a team. Our rivalry had transformed into something stronger, partnership. And the city, once a battlefield, began to feel like home. The night Daniel's promotion was finalized into a permanent leadership role, he threw another rooftop party. It wasn't like the first one. There were no velvet couches, no golden lanterns, no polished facade. Just string lights, pizza boxes, a cooler full of cheap beer, and the people who mattered most. As the laughter and music swirled around us, Daniel pulled me aside to the edge of the rooftop. The skyline glittered, the same as it had that first night, but everything else had changed. "Remember when you said you didn't know if we were fighting or falling in love?" he asked, his arm looping around my waist. I laughed softly. How could I forget? He leaned in, his lips brushing mine. "I think we were doing both. But we're done fighting now." "Are we?" I teased, kissing him back. He grinned. "Well, maybe just enough to keep it interesting." Later that night, as the party wound down and our friends drifted away, we stayed on the rooftop alone. The city hummed beneath us, endless and alive, but it no longer felt like an adversary. Felt like ours. Daniel's hand found mine, his thumb tracing lazy circles against my skin. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked quietly. "All the chaos, the rumors, the battles." He turned to me, his gaze steady. "Not for a second, because every step led me here. To you." The words sank into me like an anchor, grounding me, holding me steady against the tide of everything we had endured. And in that moment, I knew we had won. Not the promotion, not the approval of the world. Something far greater. We had won each other. The night stretched on, and for once, there was no war, no fear, no doubt. Just two men, rivals turned lovers, tangled in the glow of a city that had tried to break them, and had instead forged them into something unshakable. And as Daniel kissed me under the string lights, laughter from below fading into the hum of the streets, I realized the truth I had been running from all along. I hadn't lost the battle. I had finally found home. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.